Hello everyone, Silent here and welcome back to another episode of Bugrock of the Week. Today we're going to be taking a look at the newest Bedrock Edition Beta 1.17.32. And of course, the most recent Bedrock Edition betas as well. There's quite a few very interesting fixes and changes in these betas, such as, of course, Trident killers being fixed and just more lovely caves and cliffs features. We also have some very interesting changes and parity updates to Java Edition that we're going to be checking out as well, so stay tuned. We got a lot to talk about in today's video. So yes, you heard that correctly, Trident killers are properly fixed and they are applying the looting effect to all mobs that they kill. They are pretty much completely back to how they should be, and that is quite brilliant. These were broken in 1.17.30 and fixed basically like less than a week later in 1.17.32. So the developers really did push out this bug fix extremely quickly. As you can see, if we hold our looting 255 sword and kill this creeper using our Trident killer, we're gonna get ourselves just an absolute ton of gunpowder, as we should, because the looting effect is being applied to that creeper. So omega props to the devs for getting this one pushed out so quickly. We basically never get any form of bug fixes within like a week of, you know, an update coming out, and that is just pretty amazing. So if you see a dev around, tell them that they're doing great work, because they really are. Like, honestly, everyone at Mojang is just crushing it recently with the betas, the updates, the snapshots, the experiments. It's all just amazing, and this bug fix is just kind of like icing on that cake as well. In case you missed it, this is the changelog for 1.17.32. Everything in here is a pretty major bug and pretty standard for a hotfix. You got your crashes that could occur during gameplay. Gotta love the specificity. We get one of these every single changelog. It's just great. And then, of course, everything else in here is pretty major as well. And it's actually pretty cool to see that the looting being broken for Trident killers and other projectiles was considered priority enough not only to get fixed within such a short amount of time, but included in this hotfix and pushed out to the world. So we're going to check out a couple of these other bug fixes that were included in 1.17.32 as well. Our first major bug fix is, of course, super flat worlds that had caves and cliffs experimental turned on. They would have the majority of their chunks that were loaded actually get deleted. As you can see from this kind of image here, all of these chunks that were previously loaded with the caves and cliffs turned on have been deleted, which of course is a pretty major bug. So as you can see, the floors of these super flat worlds would get pushed down to -64, and then it would kind of try and blend the edges, which is actually a very fascinating bug, because it does introduce stone into the blending as well. And of course, these super flat worlds don't have any form of stone in them. So just kind of a cool little thing that I noticed, and just kind of a weird bug. Either way, this should no longer happen. So if you see this happening to any of your super flat worlds, go to this bug report and make sure to tell them that this is still happening. We've seen this a couple times where these things get mostly fixed, but in some niche situations, they can still occur. So keep your eyes peeled for this if you play on any super flat worlds. Next up, we have beta 1.17.40.23. This is another micro beta, but it does fix a couple of important bugs. Notably, it fixes the same bug that we just took a look at with the super flat worlds, this one right here. So they kind of fixed it twice. I don't know what that means, but that's cool. As you can see, though, there isn't really much of interest, so we'll just cover this one really quickly. A bug that a lot of you have noticed recently is whenever you pick up a tropical fish in a bucket and then place it back down, it will be a different color, and that bug has actually been fixed already. I was just about to mention this in a Bugrock episode, but Mojang fixed it before I could even get to it. They're trying to take my job. But yeah, as you can see, this works with all of the different types of tropical fish. So be aware that until the next 1.17 update, if you pick up a tropical fish and place it back down, it will change colors. So if you're someone who likes collecting these things, or if you find a really cool one, don't place it back down until the next update. Otherwise, it won't be the same color. In case you were missing them, the trapdoor recipes have returned to the recipe book on the left side of the screen, assuming that you have the correct materials or you just search for them. Previously, these things were not showing up in the book, but you could still craft the trapdoors, assuming that you placed it into the crafting grid appropriately. Kind of an interesting bug, but lily pads could not be placed in water that was deeper than a single block, so you could only place it on like shorelines and very shallow ponds, but of course, now you can place it off in deeper waters on the ocean or wherever else you want. So that is it for this beta. However, before we move over to Java Edition for a moment to look at some of the parity changes, I would like to mention the mystery mob spawning changes from a couple of betas ago. If you remember, there was a mention of some very vague mob spawning changes in the Bedrock beta changelogs, and what I assumed that was them introducing the same change that they made on Java Edition to Bedrock, but that didn't make any sense because the change was already on Bedrock. Let me explain. So Java Edition has been running on a pretty standard set of spawning rules for a while. The lower down you are in the world, the faster the mob spawning is. This incentivizes you to dig a perimeter and put your farm at the bottom of the world. So for example, at Y0 on Java, you would get 100% spawning speed, and as you went up through the world to the very top build limit, you would have like 20% spawning speed. So what they changed on Java Edition for a couple of experimental snapshots is they completely removed that system and made all layers of the world spawn mobs at the same speed. So no matter where you were, you would get these middle of the road rates, not quite ideal, but not quite terrible either. And this right here is the current system that Bedrock Edition runs on and has been running on. No matter what height you build a mob farm at, it's basically going to run at the same speed. So you just build it at the top of the world and you already have an instant perimeter. It's super easy. So they introduced this system of spawning to Java Edition for a couple snapshots, but they have since reverted that change. So Java is back to the standard system. And that is pretty much all there is to it. That is the current standing on mob spawning. We're probably going to see a couple more changes here in the snapshots and betas, but we will have to wait and see what kind of solution they come to. So real quick, I would like to talk about Java Snapshot 21W38A, and this one introduces a very fascinating change when it comes to parity. This is a huge snapshot, but we're pretty much only interested in the technical changes. They added assimilation distance to Java Edition, and this is actually a pretty big deal. For the longest time, Bedrock Edition is the only one that's had simulation distance, and Java players, at least the ones that I know, have actually been pretty interested in getting simulation distance. If you're not aware of what simulation distance is, it basically is a slider that allows you to load X amount of the world, and then the render distance is completely separate, so you can see much further than the world is actually loaded. So of course on Bedrock Edition, this is a really nice thing as it allows all the lower end devices, phones and tablets and all that kind of stuff to play really easily. So currently, the default simulation distance for Bedrock Edition is 4 chunks. That means that you're centered in a 9x9 diamond, as you can see by the graph on screen and by this little gold line that we have surrounded here. So the simulation distance of this world is on 4, so anything within this gold line is within loaded chunks. So that means that your world really is not handling that much stuff. Mob spawning really isn't taxing the system, and there just isn't really that much happening. Now, of course, our render distance is 64 chunks, so we can see a huge distance around us, and it is honestly beautiful. As you can see, these chunks are loading incredibly fast, and honestly, it's just a good system all around. So here we are on a brand new Java Edition world, and the first thing that you'll notice is that if we open up our pause menu, go to options, and then video settings, that is where simulation distance is. It was on a default of 12 for me, so that is quite the interesting thing. And unlike Bedrock Edition, you can actually increase this by increments of 1. And as you can see, it goes all the way from a simulation distance of 2 all the way up to a simulation distance of 32, which is just kind of insane. On Bedrock Edition, we only have 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12, so this is so much further. Now, as far as I can tell, these simulation distances are also squares and not diamonds. Yep, I can confirm that the simulation distance is a square, so right now we're on a simulation distance of 10, and I've summoned in these lines of sand going increments of 20 away from me. As you can see, all of these lines are lined up. If it was a diamond like Bedrock Edition, some of these ones on the end would be significantly longer. That one over there is 200 blocks away from me, and as you can see, it is not falling either. So there is quite a couple of differences between Java and Bedrock assimilation distances. Java has square instead of diamond, it has a much larger ranges of simulation distance, and you can also just like straight up change it in game. On Bedrock Edition, you have to log out of the world, change it, and then log back in. And that is just a very interesting thing. Hopefully we'll see a couple of these simulation distance changes come over to a Bedrock Edition. I think that would be a really awesome thing to see. Overall, this is a huge improvement for Java players, especially Java servers. You can now have a very high render distance while keeping your simulation distance low, increasing performance, especially for things like minigame servers, and just all kinds of different stuff. It's honestly just going to be great all around, I think. Furthermore, it's also going to help with the Caves and Cliffs update too, because of course the Caves and Cliffs has been notoriously low performance on Java Edition, where chunk loading is a lot slower. So introducing simulation distance is going to be a pretty massive help. And of course, the simulation distance also helps you get chunks loaded faster and helps with your personal frame rates as you are loading chunks as well. So let's go ahead and turn up our render distance. Currently, we're on a render distance of 2. We're going to crank that to 32, and as you can see, these chunks are actually going to start loading really, really quickly. It's not quite as quick as Bedrock Edition, but wow, that is way quicker than I have ever seen Java Edition load. That is very, very solid. Nice. That was a mistake. Wow, that's loud. Oh, it did it again! Oh, I gotta take off my headphones. That is so loud. So loud. Oh my god. Music sounds. Okay, that is getting turned off. Jeez. They should warn you when you do this command to unlock all the advancements. My. Well, now that my ears are ringing, I would like to tell you about the 4 new advancements that have been added in Snapshot 21W39A. We have Light as a Rabbit, which has been around for a while, but that's one that I'm not familiar with. We have Sound of Music, and make the meadows come alive with the sound of music from a jukebox. That's a pretty cool and just kind of Minecrafty one. We have Caves and Cliffs, free fall from the top of the world all the way down to the very bottom of the world and save yourself using a water bucket, or I guess just fall into a puddle. I suppose that would work as well. And then we have one for the Nether. Take a strider on a long walk in a lava lake, but in the overworld. So you have to get a strider through another portal using one of these warped fungus on a sticks, and then find like a lava lake somewhere, one of the lava aquifers, and ride it around for a while. We also have a star trader, trade with a villager at the very top of the world as well. That's just gonna be a pain. Mojang, do you know how many villagers are gonna die from that? There's gonna be just villagers raining down all over the place. In fact, it's gonna look something like that. Yep, that seems pretty accurate. Snapshot 21W39A also has a couple of other very interesting changes as well, such as the lone trees and meadows always having a bee's nest, zombies not spawning in dripstone caves, drowns can now spawn in aquifers inside the dripstone caves, buried treasure contain water-breathing potions, and a couple of other things as well. Of course, I don't usually cover snapshots, but Exuma always has a snapshot video out like the second that a new snapshot is released, so go check them out for all of the snapshot details. So as of right now, that is all of the Bedrock Edition betas. Of course, stay tuned as I will be releasing another video as soon as we get more Bedrock Edition betas released in the coming days and weeks. We're getting ever closer to the release of the 1.18 update, and the update really is taking shape with tons of amazing features, so hopefully you are enjoying this. Either way, thank you ever so much for watching today's episode of Bugrock of the Week. If you have enjoyed, then of course make sure to leave a like. It helps out the video and the channel a ton. If you're new here, then consider subscribing, and otherwise I'll see you guys down in the comment section and in the next one. And then there was silence.